The morning after the conversation lingered like fog in Daniel's mind, thick and impossible to shake. He moved through his small apartment on autopilot, packing his daughter Lily's school lunch while replaying the CEO's words over and over. "I want a baby, will you help?" The question had not been flirtatious or careless, it had been steady, vulnerable, almost brave. Daniel had frozen because no one had ever asked him something so heavy with trust before. As a single dad who had rebuilt his life brick by brick after loss, the idea of becoming a father again, under such unexpected circumstances, felt like the ground shifting beneath his feet. Lily sat at the kitchen table swinging her legs, humming softly as she colored. Daniel watched her for a moment, grounding himself in the familiar rhythm of fatherhood. He reminded himself that whatever decision lay ahead, Lily would always come first. That truth had guided every choice since the night he first held her alone in a hospital room, promising he would be enough. Yet now, the promise felt tested in a new way. He wasn't just responsible for a child already here, he was being asked to consider the future of a child not yet born, and the life of a woman who had entrusted him with her deepest wish. At work, the office buzzed with its usual efficiency, but Daniel noticed a shift. People spoke in softer tones, glancing toward the glass-walled corner office where she sat, Amara, the CEO everyone admired for her sharp mind and unbreakable composure. Daniel had always respected her professionalism, the way she listened more than she spoke. That was why her request had stunned him. Amara was not impulsive. If she had asked him, it was because she had thought about it carefully, perhaps for years, and had chosen him not out of convenience but conviction. When Daniel finally received a message asking him to come to her office, his heart thudded in his chest. He rehearsed a dozen responses on the walk down the hallway, none of them quite right. Inside, Amara stood by the window, city light reflecting off the glass. She looked composed, but when she turned, Daniel noticed the faint tension around her eyes. This wasn't a business meeting, it was a moment suspended between courage and fear. She didn't rush him. Instead, she thanked him for listening the day before, acknowledging how much she had asked without demanding an answer. Amara explained her story slowly, carefully, as if placing fragile pieces on a table. Years of building a company had passed alongside the quiet ticking of a biological clock. She had waited for the right time, only to realize that time rarely announces itself. She didn't want romance built on obligation or a child raised amid resentment. What she wanted was honesty, stability, and a partner in responsibility, someone who already knew what it meant to put a child first. Daniel listened, realizing that beneath her success was a woman who had been quietly lonely, choosing courage over regret. Daniel responded with equal honesty. He spoke about Lily's mother, about the grief that had carved him into a more careful man. He admitted his fear of repeating pain, of inviting change that might disrupt the delicate balance he had built for his daughter. But he also confessed something he hadn't expected to say out loud, that he loved being a father. That despite the exhaustion and sacrifice, parenthood had given his life purpose. Amara didn't interrupt, she nodded, absorbing his words, respecting the weight of them. The conversation ended without a decision, but something had shifted. There was relief in knowing he wasn't being rushed, and gratitude that she valued his boundaries. Over the following days, Daniel found himself reflecting on the idea not with panic, but curiosity. He imagined Lily with a sibling, someone to share secrets with, to laugh with, to lean on when life grew heavy. He imagined explaining the situation to her someday, with honesty and care. The thought scared him, yes, but it also stirred a quiet warmth he hadn't felt in years. At home, Daniel spoke with his sister, the one person who had seen him at his weakest. She didn't tell him what to do. She reminded him that families come in many forms, and that love is built through intention, not tradition. Her words echoed later that night as Daniel sat beside Lily's bed, listening to her breathe as she slept. He realized that his fear wasn't about becoming a father again, it was about stepping into the unknown. And yet, hadn't every meaningful chapter of his life begun that way? Amara and Daniel continued to talk, setting clear expectations, discussing responsibilities, and acknowledging the emotional complexity ahead. There was no fairy tale illusion, no rushed promises. What formed instead was mutual respect and a growing sense of partnership. Daniel noticed how Amara spoke about motherhood not as an accessory to her success, but as a deeply personal calling. And Amara, in turn, saw Daniel not just as a single dad, but as a man capable of profound care and integrity. By the end of that week, Daniel stood at a quiet crossroads. He hadn't said yes, not yet, but he no longer felt frozen. The fear had softened into contemplation, and the shock into possibility. As he watched Lily laugh over dinner, he understood that life rarely asks questions at convenient times. Sometimes it asks them when you least expect it, daring you to choose courage over comfort. And in that moment, Daniel knew that whatever decision he made, it would be rooted not in fear, but in love, responsibility, and the belief that family is something you choose, every single day.